And joining me now is NBC News Chief International Correspondent Keir Simmons in Saudi Arabia, where those meetings are taking place this week. Keir, what are the expectations as we head into this meeting tomorrow between Rubio and the Ukrainian delegation? Should we expect any real deliverables here?
Expectations low, Aaron, I would say. Interesting to hear there, isn't it? President Trump changed his language a little bit. We kind of heard that on Friday, where he threatened Russia with more sanctions if it didn't stop, as he put it, pounding Ukraine. And then you heard him there saying neither side has the cards, which isn't quite what he had been saying, a week ago when he was, very unhappy, as we saw in the Oval Office with President Zelensky saying you don't have the cards. So there are shifts, small shifts, I think, in terms of that meeting tomorrow. What the Secretary of State is talking about is really as a kind of fact-finding exercise. He briefed reporters on the way here in a gaggle. Take a listen to what he had to say.
We're not going to be sitting in a room drawing lines on a map, but just get a general sense of what concessions are in the realm of the possible for them and what they would need in return, and then find out what the Russian position is in that regard, and that'll give us a pretty good assessment of how far apart we truly are.
So critics would say, Aaron, a couple of things, I guess, and more, frankly, wouldn't they? That the Trump administration has been putting pressure on Ukraine primarily and effectively kind of salami slicing, or trying to salami slice issues that should be part of negotiations. That's one. The other is that you can actually see on the battlefield the positions of the two sides. For example, the Russians are fighting to try to push the Ukrainians out of that Russian region of Kursk. They appear to be achieving that. It's going to take some time, which raises the question, how really ready is Russia for a ceasefire at this particular stage?
Keir, we also noted that President Zelensky is not going to be in that meeting tomorrow with Secretary Rubio. Is that being viewed in any particular way on either side? Is it being viewed as a snub? What is he hoping to get out of this visit to Saudi Arabia?
I don't think it's a snub so much. I do think that there is an effort to try to repair the damage from that disastrous meeting in the Oval Office for President Zelensky. It's an opportunity, isn't it, kind of overseen by the Crown Prince here in Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, as a kind of mediator, for him to potentially, I wonder whether he'll get some time with the Secretary of State, even though they're not supposed to be officially meeting, as far as we understand, and where that will be behind closed doors. Very much so, not like the Oval Office meeting. I mean, there's a lot of repairs to be done. So I think that's the purpose, in part, for President Zelensky's trip. As well as remember that the Saudis are close to the Russians. They're also close to the Ukrainians. And the Ukrainians will want to maintain that relationship and not, if you like, kind of hand the Saudi relationship over to Moscow.
Keir Simmons in Jeddah for us tonight. Keir, thank you.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app, or follow us on social media.